They looked perfect, glittering smiles, flawless tuxedos, shimmering gowns. To the cameras, the stars of Hollywood's golden age seemed almost divine, creatures sculpted from light itself. But away from the Klieg lights and studio makeup chairs, many of these idols carried secrets far less glamorous. Some were haunted by illness and addiction. Others simply didn't believe in soap, toothpaste, or deodorant. In a time before modern dentistry, air conditioning, or daily showers were common, even the most dazzling screen gods could reek of something less than heavenly. From Clark Gable's legendary halitosis that made co-stars gag to Howard Hughes's obsessive rituals that left his penthouse smelling like chemicals and despair, these stories peel back the silver screen and reveal a Hollywood that didn't always smell of roses, literally. Tonight, we're diving into 15 famous stars whose hygiene habits shocked everyone around them. Some of these tales are tragic, others bizarre. But all will remind you that beneath the glamour, fame couldn't hide the human flaws lurking beneath. Let's begin. 1. Clark Gable, the king with the killer breath. He was the undisputed king of MGM, the man every woman wanted and every man envied. But Clark Gable's devastating charm hid a revolting truth. His mouth was a biohazard. Gable suffered from severe dental disease and had nearly all his teeth pulled in his 30s. The dentures that replaced them didn't quite fit, and his gums became infected repeatedly, giving him chronic halitosis. Co-stars quietly dreaded romantic scenes. Vivien Leigh, his Gone with the Wind partner, joked that kissing him was like kissing an ashtray full of old pennies. Another co-star, Loretta Young, once fainted during a close-up and later blamed the fumes. MGM's makeup department reportedly kept breath mints and cologne on hand whenever Gable was on set, but nothing helped for long. Still, audiences never guessed that Hollywood's greatest leading man had the world's deadliest breath. 2. Joan Crawford, the perfume mask. Few stars were as obsessed with beauty as Joan Crawford. She washed her face in ice water 10 times a day and demanded spotless sets. But under the perfumes and powder, there was a darker irony. Joan's mouth was as infamous as Gable's. Years of chain-smoking and harsh studio diets eroded her enamel. Dentists warned her of developing periodontitis, but Crawford hated dental visits and relied instead on mouthwash and perfumes to hide the problem. Crew members claimed she went through bottles of Chanel just to mask the odor. One assistant recalled, "You always knew Joan was nearby. She left behind a trail of roses and cigarettes." Despite the effort, co-stars whispered that kissing her on screen was like inhaling a funeral bouquet. Perfection on camera, putrefaction off it, Crawford's contradictions became her trademark. 3. Humphrey Bogart, the bitter bite of a tough guy. Bogart's hard-boiled grin hid years of pain. A bar fight in his youth had damaged his jaw, and heavy smoking finished the job. By middle age, he'd lost several teeth, creating gaps that gave his speech that famous rasp. Dentures irritated his gums, and he often avoided wearing them between takes. The result? A smell described by one makeup artist as equal parts whiskey, tobacco, and regret. Still, Bogey never cared. He thought vanity was for phonies, telling reporters, "If I can't smell me, it's not my problem." Lauren Bacall loved him regardless, but rumor has it she always kept peppermint gum in her purse. 4. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and plaque. Fast forward to the 1960s, and another king was making hearts race while making his dentist despair. Elvis Presley's addiction to sugary sodas and barbiturates destroyed his gums and teeth. Friends said he brushed rarely and relied on cologne instead of showers during his final years at Graceland. His cousin and bodyguard, Billy Smith, once recalled, "Sometimes the smell hit you before you saw him, a mix of sweat, candy, and decay." By the time of his death, Elvis's smile, once a national treasure, had rotted behind the scenes. The tragedy wasn't just in his music's decline, but in how his body mirrored his unraveling mind. 5. Marlon Brando, the rebel who rejected soap. If anyone embodied rebellion, it was Marlon Brando. He broke every Hollywood rule, and that included bathing. Brando believed natural body scent was part of authenticity. On the set of A Streetcar Named Desire, co-stars complained that his sweat-soaked shirts smelled feral. Director Elia Kazan begged him to wash more often, but Brando shrugged, saying, Stanley Kowalski wouldn't smell like roses. By the 1970s, things got worse. Friends said he'd show up barefoot, wearing stained robes, reeking of garlic and cigars. Yet somehow his magnetism endured. He stank of life, one admirer said, and maybe that's why Brando could pull off what no one else dared. 6. James Dean, the unwashed icon. James Dean was a comet, brilliant, brief, and messy. He refused to conform, including when it came to cleanliness. Friends recalled that Dean sometimes wore the same jeans for weeks. He skipped showers, claiming he liked his natural smell. On the Rebel, Without a Cause set, crew members discreetly opened windows after close scenes. Still, his raw charisma and tragic vulnerability made him irresistible. Dean's disheveled look wasn't just fashion, it was rebellion against the polished stars before him. Unfortunately, as one co-star put it, you could smell the rebellion before you saw it. 7. Tallulah Bankhead, Glamour Meets Grime. Broadway legend Tallulah Bankhead was famous for her wit and infamous for her habits. She chain-smoked 150 cigarettes a day, rarely slept, and loved shocking people. Her friends joked that she bathed only for opening nights. Perfume and powder did most of the work. She also had a superstition about water bringing bad luck before performances, which didn't help matters. Still, she'd strut into parties wearing diamonds, smell like whiskey, and leave every man in love. When asked if she used deodorant, she reportedly said, "Darling, I use talent." 8. Judy Garland, the tragic star who faded too soon. For Judy Garland, bad hygiene wasn't rebellion, it was exhaustion. Overworked by MGM since childhood, Garland's diet consisted of cigarettes, black coffee, and pills that wrecked her metabolism. As her health declined, so did her personal care. Friends describe her as frail, always trembling, and smelling of medication. Her decline wasn't vanity, but a symptom of abuse. The industry had ground her to dust. During her final concerts, she often wore heavy perfume to mask the odor of sweat and fear. It wasn't filth that ruined Judy Garland, it was Hollywood itself. 9. Montgomery Clift, Beauty Destroyed. Montgomery Clift was once the epitome of cinematic beauty, soft-spoken, intense, ethereal. But after his near-fatal 1956 car crash, his face was shattered. Reconstructive surgery left scars and chronic infections. His speech slurred, and his once-perfect teeth deteriorated. Alcohol numbed the pain but worsened his hygiene. Friends said he smelled of antiseptic and despair. Elizabeth Taylor, his closest friend, once helped clean his wounds and brush his teeth when he couldn't bear to look in the mirror. It was one of Hollywood's cruelest ironies. The man once called the face of a generation was destroyed by it. 10. Errol Flynn, the decaying swashbuckler. He swung from ropes, seduced queens, and made pirates irresistible, but Errol Flynn's off-screen smell was anything but heroic. Flynn's love of alcohol and tropical climates left him constantly sweating and seldom sober. His yachts were legendary party boats and biological hazards. Friends said he showered rarely, slept in saltwater damp sheets, and carried the aroma of rum and rot. One former lover claimed, "He smelled like the ocean floor, but you didn't care until morning." By his death at 50, his body had been ravaged by cirrhosis and infections. The golden god had rusted away. 11. Elizabeth Taylor, the violet-eyed enigma. Yes, even the world's most beautiful woman had secrets. Taylor loved perfume, not lightly but obsessively. She often layered multiple scents until rooms swirled with her signature musk. Co-stars joked you could taste Liz in the air. By middle age, Taylor's health declined, constant surgeries, weight fluctuations, and heavy makeup caused chronic skin issues. Assistants said she sometimes skipped baths during recovery, relying on gallons of her own fragrance line, Passion. Still, Taylor turned excess into legend. She proved that glamour isn't about perfection, it's about presence. And she had that in intoxicating supply. 12. Rita Hayworth, the beauty who burned herself for glamour. Rita Hayworth was Hollywood's fiery goddess, but her beauty routine was torture. Studios forced her to undergo electrolysis to raise her hairline, and she bleached her skin and hair weekly. These chemicals damaged her scalp, creating a permanent smell of peroxide and burnt hair. Crew members recalled that, even with perfume, the scent lingered. Rita herself reportedly said, "I feel like my own ghost, I smell of the work." Behind the glamour shot smiles, her beauty literally came at the cost of her body. 13. Charlie Chaplin, the genius with a dirty secret. Audiences adored Charlie Chaplin's little tramp, but off-camera, his hygiene left much to be desired. Crew members said Chaplin often wore the same costume for days and rarely washed his hands between takes, a problem during the silent era when makeup was heavy with lead and grease. One actress called him a perfectionist in film, a disaster in person. Chaplin didn't care. He believed genius was messy. Clean minds don't make art, he reportedly quipped, though his assistants begged to disagree. 14. Howard Hughes, cleanliness gone mad. From filth to obsession. Howard Hughes flipped the hygiene narrative upside down. After years of injuries and drug use, the billionaire filmmaker developed crippling OCD. He became terrified of germs. Yet, ironically, his isolation bred squalor. He sealed himself in dark hotel rooms for months, surrounded by tissue boxes and urine jars. Assistants wore gloves to enter. He bathed obsessively in chemical solutions, then refused to touch doorknobs for fear of contamination. His rooms stank of disinfectant and decay, the ultimate irony of a man so afraid of dirt that he drowned in it. Hughes's madness made him a prisoner of his own perfectionism. 15. Katharine Hepburn, the stoic rebel. Unlike many of her peers, Katharine Hepburn wasn't unhygienic, just indifferent. She hated fuss. She preferred cold swims in ponds to baths and used minimal cosmetics. Friends said she smelled of soap, grass, and wind, natural but rarely perfumed. What shocked people wasn't dirt but defiance. She'd attend rehearsals, unwashed, hair wet, clothes wrinkled, daring anyone to say a word. "If you want glamour," she said, "go to the circus. I'm here to work." Hepburn's unapologetic attitude made her one of Hollywood's cleanest, spiritually, if not always physically.